Jefferson Robbins with NCW Life. Wayne Harris served as Chelan County coroner for a good portion of the last several years, almost 2 decades. When he retired effective in December, he was replaced by his chief deputy coroner, Earl Crowe. Earl was appointed to fill out that remainder of that term, and he joins me now. Earl Crowe, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. I wanted to ask about your arc as a death investigator. What made you initially want to get into that field as a career?
Well, so as a young child, I wanted to be a police officer, and ended up going into the Navy for 8 years, active duty, and learned that sights and smells don't bother me. Right, we've seen several incidents as fires and such on ship, and just working through my career, getting my degree in criminal justice and crime scene mapping and stuff, we ended up in Ohio from the Pacific Northwest. And I was working actually as a child support enforcement officer when a coroner's investigator called me one day about a case they had that somebody died, and I just happened to be working enforcement on the same case. And through that conversation, he said, I don't know what your background is, but your personality-wise, I think you'd be a good fit. You should call the director, and that's how it started.
Interesting. And you were working in Ohio at that time, right?
Yep, in Franklin County, so Columbus. Yep.
So what are the steps of a death investigation? When your pager or your phone goes off, what needs to happen to trigger the coroner's involvement?
So our first call is usually from Rivercom, unless the death happens in the hospital, then it'll be from a nurse. And we just go through our standard set of questions, and we're looking for, is there something suspicious, something out of the ordinary? Could it be a blatant homicide, suicide, accident? And we'll respond to all those cases. And then we'll have cases in the hospital where it may be natural, but their hospital staff has a concern, so we'll review those as well and go to the hospital. And then, we do our whole death investigation. First, it's taking notes, photographs, meeting with first responders. If there's family present in a scene, we'll chat with them for a minute. We'll go into the scene, do what we do as far as looking at the decedent, trying to come up with some immediate answers, and then go from there. Decide whether we're just going to do an external exam or toxicology, or have to order an autopsy.
Now, autopsies is a category that I wanted to talk about. People think of the coroner's office as the site and center for autopsy if a death investigation calls for it. But that's not something that you as coroner specifically would do personally.
No, it has to be a forensic pathologist. However, my background, coming from Ohio, we were cross-trained. So not only did I go to scenes and do the forensic investigations, I also assisted in autopsies. So I probably assisted in over 5,000 cases as far as working with the doctor.
How many cases do you think, Earl, the Chelan County Coroner's Office investigates in a given year?
So in 2024, we had 628 total cases that we either went to the scene or we did file reviews, or that the health department system referred to us because of trigger words. For example, if a doctor put on a death certificate, cerebrovascular accident, well, that's a stroke, but the word accident triggers that to review to the coroner's office to make sure everything was filled out correctly. This year, we are slightly over that. I think we're at 640 for 2025. When I first started, we had roughly 400 cases.
And you started about 12 years ago as chief deputy for the coroner.
Yeah, next month will be 13 years.
So the rate or the number of cases that you're dealing with on a given basis has gone up over that time?
Yes.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, I just think that we have more population, and what people don't realize for Chelan County is that we have 2 major hospitals. So when somebody passes away, it's actually the county of death where the coroner takes over, not the county where the incident started. So if there's a car accident in Douglas County where they're transported to Central Campus and then pass away, it's our office that would actually handle the death. And we get more and more visitors from the west side or from out of state that'll come hiking, mountain climbing. So we handle all those incidents where somebody has an accident and passes away.
Coroner Harris spoke pretty frankly about the rise in deaths related to overdose, specifically fentanyl. That's something you've had to deal with, I'm assuming, as well.
Yeah, so when we first started tracking that 3 or 4 years ago, we had 9, and then all of a sudden it went up 300% for us to 30, 32, 37. In November, we were right on track with the same number, but in December, we did not have any fentanyl overdoses. And then last year, in that same 31-day period, we had 10. So
sometimes cyclical.
Yes.
So the county commissioners whom you come to speak to about budget and policy matters, they recently approved an interlocal agreement with Benton County, where Benton County, I think, will be providing medical examiner services for Chelan County. Can you kind of outline that agreement and what that means for us?
Yeah, so it's kind of the same agreement that we have for King County, Pierce County, and Spokane. It gives our office another avenue to be able to get autopsies. What's great in my mind is the fact in wintertime, when the passes are closed and we can't get to King County, we can get to Tri-Cities. And it's the same cases where if we need an autopsy, we can go in 4 different directions now.
So if your office is handling a case, you would be doing the initial investigation, the processing, the handling of the deceased person's remains, but those remains would then be going to Benton County sometimes for actual autopsy.
Yep, actually for the physical autopsy, yes.
And it won't happen every time.
No, and we do get that question a lot, because you see on TV where every case there's an autopsy, and really it's about 10% of the cases may get an autopsy.
So I know that one thing that got underway during the previous coroner's term was the development of a facility on Omi Garden Road, new county complex, and the coroner's offices are slated to have, I think your entire headquarters would be out there. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we've been working on that for 2 years. It's going to be a full facility. So we'll actually have a family room that we can meet with families. We'll have a training break room. Our offices will be upstairs. We'll have a separate room specifically for records. We will have an exam room because part of our job is also doing external exams. So if we don't order an autopsy, we'll view the decedent and do a diagram. So we'll have that space available. What's great about that is if we ever had another traveling pathologist, we could actually do autopsies here again. So, and then it'll have a secure property evidence room and a toxicology as well.
And I know, having visited your offices and the other facility that you use out in the old station area, space has been a real limiting factor for the coroner's office for quite some time.
It has been. We've been working out of that small, cooler area north of town, and then having to work out of funeral homes. And not only does this help us, it actually helps the funeral homes because that'll give them their spaces back. So,
when we're talking about, not to be too blunt about it, but storage.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. When we have to have people in refrigeration. Yep.
And I know that some of this was necessary in part because the way the state accredits coroner's offices changed in the last couple of years.
Yes. So it became law this past July that every office in the state needs to be accredited. That's something I've been pushing for. That was part of my budget. Coroner Harris allowed me to do the budget since he wouldn't be here. And there's things I put in because we're going to have to meet accreditation. There's 285 required standards. And once we start the process, it'll probably take about 10 months to be inspected. So this whole facility will meet all of those needs for accreditation.
Well, Earl, you're serving as coroner by appointment, and it's a politically appointed position and an elected position. Will you choose to run again in 2026?
Yes, absolutely. I've already announced that and did my public disclosure forms for that, yes.
Does coroner, with all of the very technical requirements of the job, does it really make sense as an elected position? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it makes sense to me as an elected position for the way that the voters get to select who their coroner is. if it was solely by appointment, then you're really, you're bound by 3 commissioners only. And that could be good or that could be bad. But I think it's important to be elected. My question has always been, why is it a partisan position? Because in my mind, if my loved one was found deceased, would I care if they were Democrat or Republican? And the answer is no. I want somebody that knows how to do the job.
And in some counties, they have a different system of medical examiner systems, King County, for instance.
Yeah, so any county that has over 250,000 in population, the voters can then vote to make it a medical examiner's office versus a coroner. And that difference is medical examiner is a forensic pathologist that's appointed, and then coroner is elected.
And that person has to come into the job with professional qualifications before they can be appointed.
Correct. Yeah, which is probably 10 to 12 years of schooling past your medical school.
You were educated in Ohio. When you came back to Chelan County, to the northwest, to do this kind of work, did you find any particular, challenges or kinds of investigation that were more prevalent here than what you might have seen in Ohio?
There's more wilderness here. In Ohio, in Franklin County, there was about 1 million people. We handled 7,000 deaths a year, 125 to 150 homicides in the city every year alone. So that there was, we had a large office though, 5 full-time pathologists, 12 investigators, and we were all cross-trained. And that's where I became board certified. But coming back here, the difference is, sure, there's less cases, but right now there's only 2 of us. And somebody passes away in Stehegan, we have to drive up to Manson, get on the sheriff's boat, go all the way up to Stehegan. And it could be 12 hours round trip. So the difference is just the mountainous areas to me.
Up until your appointment, you were serving as Chief Deputy Coroner. Who is your Chief Deputy Coroner now?
Faye Fetters. Faye started November 3rd, coming from New York.
And do you see any expansion for the office? You have a lot of needs. You're handling a lot of cases. Do you see any need for a third person?
I do. We've actually had a need for the last 7 years. Coroner Harris, tried to work on that, and but this year for my budget, there was a lot of back and forth communication and dialogue between me and the Commissioner's office, and we should be able to post, or at least ask permission to post, come June or July, and have a third investigator in place in October.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Well, Earl Crowe, is there anything else you could think of that I didn't ask about the county coroner's office that you think people might be interested to know?
Well, a couple things. So one, I would say, you see a lot online when somebody passes away, and you see a lot of rumors and conspiracy theories. And the coroner's office doesn't put out a ton of information. The reason is because it's all confidential. So the families get that information, and if the families don't want to tell people everything that's going on, that's up to them. But I would just say that for those that make those comments, you really don't know what's going on in people's lives, and you don't know what the family's going through, and rumors and conspiracy theories and things like that. It hurts the families of their loved one. So I would just ask that people should consider that before posting. The other thing is I don't think people realize how much we actually work. Some people just think we sit in the office and wait for the phone to ring, but we actually, in a given year, between working in the office for hours and on-call hours, we average about 5,000 hours a year that we're tied to the phone. Now, for me, I've been doing this 22 years now. My family is used to that, but when I'm asked, certain questions about that, I say, well, I serve the people of the county, but I do it a lot of time at the detriment and the sacrifice of my family, much like when you're in the military. So it's not an easy job, and it really does take, I believe, special people to do it.
Well, Earl Crowe, the Chelan County Coroner, recently appointed, but good luck in the job.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're watching the NCW Life channel.